at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots TouchBack Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of the Patriots TouchBack Podcast 2.0, if you will. We're back for a new season, new pod, same style, new network, and some new blood, as you can see if you're watching. Firstly, myself, DJ, Luke, and Carl, who two of them can't be here tonight. We do want to say thank you very much to the full 10 yards for hosting us over the last 2 years. We really appreciate what they've done for us and the effort that they've put in. And we just felt that we needed something different, and we've decided to go our separate ways. So we are now with the Sports Social Network podcast group. I believe they have Nat Coombs on their books, so we're in esteemed company. So we're very grateful to them for hosting us and giving us the chance to grow the pod. Like I said, it'll still be the same thing. We'll still sit here and talk complete and utter rubbish, but you know, that's just the way it is. With changes and everything else, we've decided to bring on some new blood. You know, I can't carry the team all myself, so I needed some help. So I want to introduce to you Johnny and Kieran, who will be joining us. Again, we'll try and put at least 3 of us out every week in a variety of combinations, so you'll get to know the guys. But if Johnny, I'll start with you. If you want to tell us a bit about where you got into the NFL, where you got into the Patriots, go for it.
Yeah, no, cheers, mate. So excited to be aboard and part of the team. So I started following the NFL at about 13, 14 years old. So I was basically flicking through Sky Sports, found a spot I didn't necessarily recognise. It looked interesting. There was I knew a friend, one of his best men at my wedding, Jay-Z, so shout out to him. Him and his dad were Cleveland Browns fans. I knew of the sport. I'd played Madden on like one snow day at his house, and I saw it on TV, recognised it, and there was a team with England in the name. So I thought, I want you guys to win, and now I'm on a podcast about that team. So you know, it comes full circle.
Excellent. Kieran.
Hi guys, really excited to be part of the team. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so pleased to be on, making my debut on the pod. Where I date back, I guess similar to Johnny, really kind of early teens. Was actually living out in Australia at the time, and I used to get pelters for being British out there. So went to a mate's house out there, and his family were absolutely obsessed with the NFL. Games were on all the time. Madden would be on for several hours a day. And then when it came to picking a team, just like Johnny, saw a team that there was a team with England in the name, and decided to adopt them as my team. And that was in 2008. So I've been a Pats fan since then. Made my first visit to Foxborough in 2017. Got a Patriots tattoo in 2019. So I'm pretty committed now.
Fair enough. Like I said, we're delighted to have you aboard. We'll try and listen to what you say. We won't necessarily agree with you, but that's part and parcel of being on a podcast. With new launch, obviously Carl and Luke can't be with us tonight, so they send their apologies. They'll be on soon enough. Let's get into it, guys. I would say the biggest news out of Foxborough was that Kyle Duggar signed a new deal. I think that's crucial for the rebuild. His deal is worth $66 million in total. A 58 million base salary, and 32.5 million of that is guaranteed. It's all right if you can get it, I suppose. In 2020, he cost the Patriots a second-round pick. He played in all 17 games last season, 371 snaps with 109 tackles. So, constant performer, and he's become quite an integral part of that defense. And obviously, while we picked him as a safety, he can play slight corner. So, DJ, what do you think with that?
Yeah, I think he's fully deserved it. There is people out there saying that we've kind of overpaid a safety from what he's come from or where he's came from, because he was one of the lower tier divisions in the college football. So he's really never had the top tier like division conferences and that. But I reckon he's fully deserved it. I'm surprised it took this long to kind of get the deal wrapped up, but yeah, I'm all for it. Like I say, I think he's a crucial part in this rebuild. We want to keep these youngsters on our teams, and he's definitely got the potential to be a next Devin McCourty. So that's the way I see it in my eyes. And I think that's what Mayo obviously sees it as that as well. So yeah, I'm all down for that. Yeah, and as it fills another position as well, we don't have to then kind of now look at the draft thinking, well, is he going to leave? Is he not going to leave? Are we going to trade him or not? So that safety spot now is kind of like secured. So we can now fill holes elsewhere where it's probably much needed.
Yeah, I think it's a good signing as well in terms of I know the price is probably a little high. I think he's like the 6th highest paid safety or something. But I think given the amount of cap space we've got and we've not spent it in free agency, I have no issues with paying one of the few potentially blue chip players we've got on the squad. And like you say, Nick, he's super versatile. Like if you look at like the splits of where he's lined up between slot, box, and free safety and stuff, he's even landed on the D line on like a few snaps last year as well. So like he's a good cog to have, I think, on the defense.
I think it's also important to keep the core of the defense together as well, because that's been the strong point of the team now for the last couple of years. And whilst we're expecting the offense to change in many ways, I think we'd all be pretty satisfied if defensively we're pretty similar, because I'd imagine Mayo is going to run a similar defensive scheme. So keeping those core players like Duggar, Barmore, Bentley, Tavai, I think that's just so important. It is a little bit on the expensive side, but as Johnny said, we've got plenty of cap room, and if we can't invest in players in free agency, then it's important to lock down the players that we have got here that are crucial to carrying that team forward.
Yeah, but I think the secondary is probably the one position group in the team that I think is relatively like between Gonzalez, Peppers, Duggar. Yeah. That's a pretty solid, back three, potentially the corner spot we'd like to fill. But that might happen in the draft. You never know.
Stephon Gilmore, just going to throw it out there.
The return.
The man's 33. Or turns 33 in 2 weeks or something silly like that.
I'd still take him as a cornerback too, though. Great mentor for Gonzalez.
Well, I don't know. At 33, I don't know. I think his best days are behind him. His probably not so best days are probably behind him as well. I don't think we need that. Christian Gonzalez coming back and Judon coming back will both be, huge boosts. They'll be like new players. So I think, and even when we lost Gonzalez last year, all the cornerbacks that filled in did make significant improvements. Me and Carl sat here and we talked about how, this guy's played well or this guy's played well. So I think from, like you said, from a defensive standpoint, the defense wasn't the problem with the Patriots last year. The defense balled out every time. We went 4 games conceding, less than whatever it was, 10 points. So
10 or less, wasn't it?
Defense was not the problem. So, all agreed then. Good deal.
Yeah.
While we talk about the rebuild, Mayo was quoted last week. He refers to the rebuild as a process, and it's not just about the QB. So read into that what you will. I will read it one way. I'm sure somebody will read it another way. But he does have a point in that, I talked on the chat today about we are, as the Patriots, as a franchise, we are paying for 10 years of poor drafting. You cannot turn this franchise around in one draft. It will take significant drafts to do. And we haven't got the equity to be trading good players away to get more picks like the Texans had. So, I think we have to understand it is a process that is going to take time unless you can pick up more picks to accelerate that process. But again, I will leave that for half an hour. So has anyone got an opinion on that? Has anyone, is anyone reading between the lines?
I think he's maybe kind of playing both sides, because I know in his opening press conference he talked about addressing the most important position with that number 3 pick, and I think it's a smart move. Don't give the game away. Kind of leave options open. And you've seen the Tom Curran report coming out this week that it's going to take a mega haul for us to move down, and it's going to have to exceed 3 first rounders. That's the starting point. So I think he's playing the game right, and I'm happy with that.
I agree you can't turn the team around in one draft, but you can in 2. I think Cincinnati have proven that by hitting on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and suddenly they've been propelled into a Super Bowl. So, look, I think, I can't remember who it was, but someone on the chat earlier made a really good point, is that the offense was turgid last year, but with a little bit of an uptick, we could have easily have won 7 or 8 games. So I think if a little bit of injection of life into the offense this year, starting with the quarterback position, and we could easily win 7 or 8 games next year, no problem.
I would say that was Carl, and he's got a big head enough. He doesn't need to be hearing us saying that he had a great point. Don't say that. Just touching back on that Cincinnati point though, they had to make that decision in the draft whether they were going to go for Jamar Chase at wide receiver or whether they picked Penei Sewell to protect Burrow. Yeah. Now they chose Chase, and what happened to Burrow? He tore his ACL. So it's by no means there's no right or wrong way to do it. You've got to do it the way that you think is the way. But there are positives and negatives to both options.
Absolutely. I think they took the approach of kind of surrounding him with as much talent as possible, with like Mixon, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, and kind of just, I guess, hoping you can get separators or someone like Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, who are jump ball specialists, that you can just, doesn't matter if Joe Burrow's protected, they're getting open, and even when they're covered, they're probably open. So I think that was, like you said, the smart way to go, but perhaps Burrow's injury history has suggested otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think that this rebuild's going to be done in one draft. There's just no way. You're talking, I'm even thinking about 3 years down the line. Look at the Texans. Look how well they've managed. I know they had quite a few bare picks, but look what they've achieved in the last 2 years by getting CJ Stroud and now getting in weapons in there. So they're definitely going to be a team to look out for this year, but the way that they've managed to turn around that team. But again, is that coming from coaching level, GM level? Who's in that GM position that was part of our?
You mean our former GM? You mean the guy that couldn't get our GM job?
Well, yeah. Is that because of Kraft?
No, I would think it's because of the
Bill.
coach. Well, right. So as it's off season technically, the voluntary veteran mini camp is April the 23rd and 24th. Mandatory mini camp for all players is the 11th and to the 13th of June, and the rookie development mini camp is from the 13th of May and has a 7-week window of which teams can select 4 weekends from. So I guess at some point in the next few months, the Patriots will all be in and working hard. They can be in at the moment, I believe, but only in the weight room.
I think it's Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah.
The off-season voluntary ones, yeah. I think it starts on Thursday.
Yeah.
That's about it. There's not much going on until you get to draft news. Away from the Patriots, but staying in the division, or moving out of the division if you like, Stephon Diggs traded from Buffalo. Anyone shocked at that this week?
Kind of, and not.
I mean, it feels like Stephon Diggs has been leaving Buffalo since he arrived, really, with some disgruntled tweet or something since every other week. But I don't think it's a bad deal for the Texans. They've got him for a year, maximize CJ Stroud's rookie contract, and get the best you can. Surround a young QB with a veteran weapon. I don't think it's a bad idea, really.
No, especially for the price they paid for him as well. I mean, was it a conditional second in 2025? That's a great price. 1 year contract. Buffalo are absorbing pretty much all of that contract anyway. So it's win-win for Houston, and obviously helps us out in the division because we don't have to go up against Stephon Diggs twice a year. And it just makes that Houston team much more dangerous. I saw a suggestion that are they now the second best team in the AFC? And I think you could argue that they are.
I think on paper.
So, yeah, I mean, they obviously had a really good season last year, and now with what they've added with Daniil Hunter and Stephon Diggs and some other players as well. I mean, if they nail this draft, they could be right there at the end of the season. But yeah, from Buffalo's perspective, they've got a bit of rebuilding to do because their window has been open now for the last few years, and they don't seem to be able to get through it. So.
No, and I think it's an issue with someone like Stephon Diggs. You notice that he did the same thing in Minnesota, playing really well, tiffing with the QB, and then all of a sudden he's gone after a few years. And at some point, maybe you're better off without him, even if he's a talented player. And he wasn't used a lot in Joe Brady's system at the end of the year when Joe Brady took over as play caller. He kind of was the odd man out. So I wonder if potentially it's not a huge deal for them to lose him. But you think they'd have to address receiver in the draft.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think it says a lot as well that they're willing to take a pick next year rather than this year and absorb all that money as well. Yeah. They're quite clearly keen to get him out of the building, which says a lot about the character.
And I think as well, it probably speaks to what they think of Josh Allen in the sense that, look, we're willing to just get this guy out of town if it's going to make you happy, and that's obviously what you want. Is you've got a franchise QB of that ilk, you want to keep them happy, and if that means getting somebody that's causing an issue out of the building, then you do it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't just getting a pick from Houston for next year. They had to give Houston 2 picks as well. Buffalo get the second round pick that Minnesota gave Houston, but they have to give Houston their 6th round pick this year and the 5th round pick next year. They were desperate to get that guy out. I think they would have, in all truth, I think they would have preferred to get the deal done after the 1st of June when they could have split the cap hit, and I think it would have only cost them like $8 million this year, and the rest would have been last year. Whereas now it's going to cost them the whole $31 million this year, but. I think that was more to do with the Texans wanted him in, and in the off-season workouts, which there was pictures of him yesterday or today at the Houston's facility and doing what he needed to do. So I think Houston probably drove that through the deal, that if we don't do it now, for now, we don't do the deal at all. And I think Buffalo were at the end of their tether and just wanted him gone. But I think Houston have done something clever in that they gave him all his guaranteed money this year and cut his contract down to just a single year. So they're not screwing him out of any money. It means they pay him an extra I think it's something like $3.5 million. They pay him $22.5 million this year, but he's got no more years. He's got no more guaranteed money, no more years. They didn't want that problem of, do we sign him to a contract? Do we not? What do we do? I think
it's like he needs to prove it. Yeah, he needs to prove that he's worthy for another deal for another 2-year or 3-year contract, whatever they decide to do. If he's not happy in Texans, then he gets to leave. So I think it's a win-win kind of scenario for both teams.
And he's got to be careful as well. Sorry,
go on, Kieran.
I was saying he's got to be careful as well, because what is he on? He's on the other side of 30 now. He's approaching 31.
Yeah.
And, teams are going to be reluctant to give him another massive contract if he walks out of Houston in the summer. There might not be that much interest. We saw with DeAndre Hopkins, obviously going back to last year, there wasn't a massive amount of interest in him. And yes, there's one or two concerns about him off the field. But if Stephon Diggs has essentially now been, shoved to the side by two teams, and he's in his 30s, and Houston don't want to keep him beyond the summer, then realistically, what's he going to get on the open market next year if he doesn't show up?
Exactly. He's a receiver on the wrong side of 30 who declined in production at the back end of last season, and he's a known locker room problem. Limiting his contract to 1 year is a smart move on the part of the Texans, because if you do get him in and he's not the player he was, or he is an issue in the locker room, then you just don't re-sign him at the end of the season and you're all good. You move on.
This has got Raiders written all over it.
He'll crash and burn in 2025 with the Raiders.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to draft news. I just have two notes, and you guys can tear me apart all you like. The former Vikings GM, Rick Spielman, believes that the Vikings are willing to overpay heavily for JJ McCarthy. Hopefully that means overpaying up to number 3, but there we go. Former NFL fullback and ESPN analyst Merrill Hogue refers to quarterback May as the kind of player that will get you fired. NBC analyst and former QB Chris Sims has May as the 6th best QB available.
I love Chris Sims' rankings. They're always wild.
I think he just trolls people deliberately. I honestly do.
It's just Nepo baby whose dad's a Hall of Famer and he can just do what he wants.
Yeah.
So, listening to some of the things he got up to as a kid, he was probably a right little arsehole as well.
It's almost as bad as that NFL draft analyst, Chad Reuter, that basically always picks like 5th round players to go in the first round in his very extensive mock drafts.
Yeah, they make him do 5 rounds, so I kind of just forgive him, because I'm like, at this point, I'd give up as well. You just pick, I'm convinced half of the 5th round is just made up players. He's just making them up; they're not even real.
I think the thing with once you get into that 3rd day from the 4th round onwards, I think it says something that, even the commissioner's given up. It's like the vice commissioner, and people have to come out and introduce, and it's anybody and his dog comes out and presents the pick. It's like, guys.
Sometimes it's literally a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always think that's really condescending to like somebody who's having their dream come true, and it's like, oh, you were drafted by an orangutan at the Cincinnati Zoo or something. I think this poor guy's worked his entire life to make it to the NFL, and that's how he got his first job.
But I don't think there's much to choose between a 4th round and a 7th round player either. I think it's just one of those. By then, teams are going on needs, and they're just filling spaces. Half the players that drafted it there don't make it anyway. But it's so hard for a team to decide whether he's actually worth it against him, and so I kind of just 4th round's a 7th round. It's like, right, yeah, him. Yeah,
they just draft on traits, don't they? The physical traits. If you're looking for, if you've used tight end as an example, they're just going to go for a guy who's incredibly athletic, that has a lot of the physical tools and traits that you can work with and develop, and hope to hit on them. We got pretty lucky a couple of years ago with getting Michael Onwenu in round 6 as a guard. You can find starting players late on, but it is very difficult. And yeah, it's very much a dart throw from day 3 onwards.
I think you often see players as well, that hit the Patriots player we shall not name, Aaron Hernandez, who, he came in the 4th round. Guys like him, I think this year's version of him, trying not to compare any player to him seems terrible, actually. But Jermaine Burton, who's a really talented wide receiver from Alabama, played at Georgia as well, and he's insanely talented, but he punched a fan after a game. And he's just an absolute, everything you read about him off the field, the guy's a nut job. but he's probably a first round talent. So that's kind of where you potentially think, right, cool. If I take a 4th round flyer on somebody like him and he doesn't work out, well, who cares? That, like Nick said, most 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks don't work out anyway. So let's just take the flyer and see what happens.
I'll put my hands up and say last year when we drafted Keishon Boutte in round 6, I was absolutely jumping for joy because I thought, here we got like a potential first round talent on our hands. And he took that touchdown to the house in pre-season against the Packers. And I was like, do you know what? This kid's going to break out at some point. But it's been ever since he kind of got doghoused in week 1 against Philadelphia. We've not seen him since. And he's had the arrest for the gambling. And I don't know what's going to happen to him. But I mean, that's similar to Jermaine Burton, isn't it? Clearly a talented player that's kind of lost his way a little bit.
Yeah, I'm also an LSU fan, so that was a shame. I was really excited when we drafted him, similar to you, Kieran. But yeah, a little bit gutted with his off season, to be honest.
Hopefully, he can turn it around.
Yeah, I hope so.
Trayvon Sweat was arrested for a DUI.
The weekend.
This week. I mean, he was arrested at 2:30 in the afternoon. Apparently, he'd been drinking since 11 in the morning. I mean, come on, man! You've got
this close to the draft.
Oh, and he's another one. He's got first round traits, but he's got weight issues. He's got anger issues that they don't even think he'll go in day 2. It'll be day 3 at best when he gets picked, because there's just so many issues away from off the field that he's showing.
Yeah, and you watch like the national championship game, he was unbelievable. And the college playoffs, he was fantastic. So it's such a shame that he can't kind of keep it together.
But if it's a one-off and you get that guy on day 3, day 4, you'll be having a laugh.
Yeah.
It's like the Rice situation as well. That's just got a bit AWOL in it.
Especially so close after the Henry Ruggs scenario. You just think, come on. What I would do if I was an NFL agent, I would make every single one of my players have a driver.
Yeah, chauffeur.
And that'd be it.
There's a driver available to you. There's a button on, Mike Florio says it. There's a button on your phone. There's an app. Just get a driver to come and pick you up. That's what it's there for. But I'll risk it. I mean,
yeah.
Not only did Rice have 2 cars in that and was street racing, he then got out the passenger side and legged it. And it's not good.
I think he got drugs as well.
Yeah, there were firearms as well involved, I think.
But,
minimal amount of drugs. I hadn't heard about the firearms, but
no, I haven't heard about the guns.
I read some of the firearms in the boot, and they were seen sort of taking them and leaving. But coming off, a Super Bowl victory, your rookie season, you think even if you're not going to stay with the Chiefs long term, just a chance to play with Pat Mahomes and be essentially the number 1 receiver for the next few years, then you're going to hit free agency, make yourself a lot of money, and he's probably just cost himself a lot.
Yeah, very much indeed. Should we get a draft done?
Let's do it.
Right, okay. So, for everybody listening, we are going to, on our pod, do a full first round mock. It goes without saying that with the few of us that we've got, we did expect to have Luke with us, so we divided it 5 ways, and then Luke was unable to join us, so we're going to split his picks amongst us. What we will do is I will share my screen so that you can see the So I've just picked up a simulator. So everyone good? Everyone see that? All ready to go?
Yeah, good to go, man.
Yeah.
Right. So if we all assume that Caleb Williams is going number 1, are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
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 Right. Done. According to my list, DJ, you are up with Washington. Where are Washington going?
So I think, again, Washington are in a very similar situation to us. as in regards to like they've cleaned the house, owner, GM, coach. I think they need to start again with a QB. I've got them going Jaden Daniels, LSU.
Okie doke. Right. We said we would do the Patriots pick as a group, and then the majority would win out. But again, Luke means that we've got an even number. So hopefully we don't have a tie. Right. Who wants to start? What should the Patriots do? Kieran.
The Patriots should do the smart thing at number 3 overall and select Drake May, because this guy has got incredible traits, both physical and mental. I think he's got everything you could possibly want in the mold of a franchise quarterback. And I can understand the arguments for trading down, but there's just no guarantees for the future. You don't know what future classes are going to bring. And while we've got the opportunity to take a guy who is a consensus franchise quarterback in the view of many experts, I just don't think we can waste that opportunity. I think from my analysis of him over the last few weeks, I think stylistically he's also the best fit for our offense. I think he's a guy that will stand in there in the cold and take big hits if he needs to. He'll stand tall, poise in the pocket. He'll deliver those strikes down the field. I just feel like he's by far the best option. So I'm all in on Drake May.
Johnny?
I think Dave's made this one quite difficult because I think Drake, I agree with exactly what Kieran said there. I think of the QBs in this draft, I think Drake May is easily the best fit for Alex Van Pelt's scheme. So I think I would not be agreed with taking Drake May at number 3. Having said that, it's not my preferred route. I would, if we could get 3 first-round picks from Minnesota, the 11, 23, and then a 2025 first-round pick, I think I'd be willing to pass up. Certainly on Jaden Daniels, just because I have a few reservations as an LSU fan. I watched every game of his last year, and I have some reservations about his game and how it translates to the NFL and specifically to the Patriots scheme. Like I said, I think Drake May's a better fit, but I think the number of holes on this roster, I mean, we've literally had a conversation about how potentially a safety is one of our best players, and that's never a good sign. So I think if we could trade down to 11 and 23 this year and accumulate 2 first-round picks, get 2 lots of talent, whether that be, I would be happy to trade down to 11 and pick a QB there. I'm a big Michael Penix believer, and get a receiver or an offensive tackle if one slides at 23. I'd be very happy with that. And then obviously we've got the early 34 overall pick in the second round, which could easily give us a receiver because this is a very deep receiver class. Or I would be happy with trading that for T. Higgins if the opportunity arose and Cincinnati was willing to do that and let him out of the tag. So yeah, my ideal scenario is trade down with Minnesota if they're willing to give it 3 first-round picks, but I would be happy with Drake May.
DJ?
Where do I start?
At the beginning.
Yeah. So I get where people are coming from, where we've got a lot of holes to fill. If we were to trade down, I just don't know who would pay us and what they would pay us. I can't see Vikings giving us 3 first-round picks. I just think it's just too much. So I feel that on the night, the right deal won't be for Patriots to trade back. I think they will pick Drake May. Drake May is the next QB for the next 10 to 12 years. And that's where I feel that we need to start on this rebuild. We need someone there solid enough that we can't pass by at number 3. So I'm all for, like you say, if we can trade down and the price is right to trade down and get numerous of picks. And like you say, pick a Penix, even if JJ McCarthy was to slip that low, if we was to go down to 11, like you say, but I still think JJ is going to go earlier than 11. So I say we pick Drake May at 3.
I think as soon as if you traded with Minnesota, as soon as you traded with him, that's JJ off the board because they will go hell for leather for McCarthy. He's built for that system. I will, and this is not a secret. I have made my choices perfectly clear. I will stand on this hill and shout and scream like a 4-year-old if I have to. We need to trade down. We have got so many holes in the offense, so many holes in that line in front of the QB. What is the point in taking a QB if he's just going to get battered because the line in front of him can't protect him? What is the point in taking a QB that's got to sit out a year? You're not even getting the benefit of your QB straight away because he's not good enough to play, and you're left with Jacoby Brissett to play. So, Drake May, my 4-year-old daughter has better feet and better legs than Drake May. I mean, he looks like he's running in
not that
half
bad.
the time. He is that bad. Did you not watch his pro?
You can work
Did you
on
watch
him.
his pro day?
I think an interesting point on his
bland.
footwork was actually, I was listening to something a while ago, a podcast, and they were talking about that North Carolina shifted offensive coordinators between last season and the season before. And the original offensive coordinator actually had in his system a sort of back pedal style drop back. And the new offensive coordinator transitioned and wanted more of your sort of sidestep galloping, traditional kind of drop back. And that was his first exposure to that, which was potentially a good explanation to why his footwork was all over the place because of that transition. I don't necessarily hate kind of letting him sit for a year and having Jacob Brissett kind of take a season. He had a lot of success in Alex Van Pelt's scheme in Cleveland. So I would be okay with sitting him. Drake May's very young. I think he's only 21. So
21, he's the youngest.
Very young.
So I don't think he'll sit the whole season. Personally, I think you sit him for 8 to 10 games, and he plays the back end of the year. They might want him to sit for the whole season, but how often does that happen nowadays?
Yeah,
there's always going to be pressure. If Jacoby Brissett goes 3-7 in his first 10 games, there's going to be calls to put Drake May in there. And whilst I think you mentioned the line, Nick, we all know the line wasn't great last year, but it did improve once we put Michael Nwenu back at right tackle. We need a left tackle. That's obvious. Everybody knows that. But it can't be worse going into this season if we just add a guy that's solid, that can do a job rather than having the turnstile of Vidarian Lowe play left tackle.
I think Okafor's already an improvement.
Did we get that Steelers gig?
Yeah, Okafor was a really solid ad. I think that was a smart, cheap bit of business. And to be honest,
I think an offensive line just needs to kind of creep to average. I don't think an offensive line needs to be dominant in this era of football. And I feel like, you're absolutely right. Like a mediocre line would be an improvement on last year anyway. And I feel like if you put Drake May in that team from last year, we probably would be better. I mean, if Bailey Zappi can win games behind that line, then so can Drake May. So, the big concern for me is the skill positions. Drake May played with not a lot of talent. Definitely the least talent of the QBs that are higher up in the draft. So I'm concerned that we're going to put him in a position where he's going to play with probably even less talent than he had in college, to be fair. And what he's going to do with that, because I don't know whether part of the reason if we did draft him, I'd be okay with sitting him is I would like we talked about being a multi-year rebuild, seeing where we end up in the draft in terms of skill position players, and then kind of seeing if actually, even if we don't get a particularly great pick next draft, let's let Drake May sit, see what happens next draft, build a better team, and let him come in when we've got some talent. Because I don't know what benefit. I think potentially good QBs can get broken by being put in a really poor team too quickly. And I think that maybe explains why the 2021 draft just looks so awful right now in terms of the way their quarterbacks have panned out.
Well, like I said, I will happily concede. I know that Carl and Luke, who aren't here, both want to draft Drake May. So you know what? I'm quite happy to lose and say, okay, let's draft Drake May. But what I will say, and I started touching on it, watching his pro day was so bland. I have seen plain boiled rice more exciting than Drake May's pro day. I mean, it was boring. I turned it off before it had finished because his throws were basic. They weren't really very exciting. Yeah, he pushed it a little bit, but didn't really, really give it guns. He didn't make it take any risks. It was safe throws. No, he wasn't proving anything to me. So I've selected Drake May on behalf of the group, but it's not my choice. So,
I do think the safe throws might have been intentional though, because one of the big criticisms on him is that he makes some miraculous throws, but he misses a lot of layups and a lot of really simple throws over the middle. So I do wonder if potentially a pro day showing him hitting those is intentional.
Also important to mark out as well that he did throw an off-platform 65-yard bomb in that pro day as well. So the arm talent is unquestionable in my opinion.
And I also think North Carolina wide receiver core in that last year wasn't the best.
Wasn't
good. And that offense does not translate well to the NFL too.
Yeah, the line wasn't awful either, but I think he made that team better than what they were on paper. Very similar to what Brady does. He makes the player who they are. I
think his mobility is underrated as well.
Yeah. Nick, if you was to get QB, who would you go?
If we didn't draft May, is that what you're asking?
If you had to pick one out of the top 6 that we've just kind of like gone through, who would you go? If you had them on the board, even Caleb.
Well, obviously, if Williams was available on the board, you would take Williams.
See, I don't.
I think if it was my choice and I had all the QBs available to me, it would be Williams, it would be Daniels, it would be McCarthy, it would be Penix, it would be Drake May, and it would be Bo Nix. They would be my top 6. And then further down the line, it would be the great Sam Hartman would be my number 7.
I like that Tennessee guy. What's that Tennessee lad?
Joe Milton.
Who? Milton.
Joe Milton.
That guy could launch that ball.
He's got every single trait you want, except the fact he can't play quarterback. Unfortunately,
crucial in the position. Right, let's move on. Yep. Johnny, you get Arizona's pick. Let's go.
So I think Arizona are in a relatively similar position to the Patriots in terms of a trade down would potentially be ideal for them. I think if Minnesota couldn't get up to us, I think they'd probably be happy to trade up to the Cardinals. And given the Cardinals have a not particularly talented roster, hence why they're picking at 4, but they do have a quarterback, I would be happy to stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. if I didn't get the offer that I wanted. But if Minnesota and their 3 first-round picks were willing to jump up to number 4, I would also snatch their hand off and drop to 11-23 and pick up an extra first rounder next year.
Do you wish to propose that trade with Minnesota?
I would wish to ask the bot what they think.
Okay, then let's see. Arizona.
And just wreck our draft order that we've all prepared.
I know. Are you happy with that request? 3 first rounders?
I am, thank you. 3 first rounders. Oh, Arizona for the playoffs.
The trade has been rejected.
You're lost, Minnesota.
You're obviously too rich for them. You're obviously too rich for them. Right, Marvin Harrison, I believe.
I would, yeah. I'd run Marvin Harrison up to the podium.
Okie dokie, right. DJ, back to you. You jump to Luke's picks. So, the LA Chargers are on the board.
I had the Chargers going for Harrison if he was to be on the board. I just feel the Chargers this year, they've lost a lot of offensive weapons. They've lost their running back Eckler. They've lost Williams. They've lost Keenan Allen. I reckon they go. I know they probably need to protect Herbert a bit better, but I think you can't give up Neighbours on this opportunity. So I've got them going at wide receiver LSU Neighbours.
Okay.
That's a good shout.
Right. Now, I will take the Giants pick. I will be honest, if I was in charge of the Giants before the Patriots had picked, I'd be trying to trade up with them. So, but obviously the Patriots have picked me, so I can't do that. In that case, I will take Aroma Dunze off the board, as apart from a QB to replace the inept Jones in a year's time, they are desperate for a wide receiver. And along with Harrison and Neighbours, Dunze is... Those three are in a class of their own, so it would be ridiculous to leave the top six without him. So there you go.
And they're just such a talent poor roster as well that I think picking
definitely.
a QB is just too rich for them at this point.
Kieran, you get Tennessee.
Yeah, and as the Titans general manager for this pick, I'm absolutely delighted that the Giants have passed on a blue chip player. The Titans have the worst offensive line in the league over the last 2 years statistically. So please give me Joe Alt to stick in straight away at left tackle for the foreseeable future.
Legend. I watched him last year in Ireland. He was absolutely immense. He was immense all year, but, watching him in person, awesome, brilliant.
And that'll give them a great, the left side of their line with Alt and obviously Skoronski, the first round pick last year. That'll give them a nice little, left-hand side of their line. We know obviously they could use some more additions across the whole line, but that would certainly give them a real strong point on the blind side.
Indeed. DJ, you get Atlanta.
I've got Atlanta. Even though I think they should pick probably the best offensive tackle there is, that Fashanu lad. Because I've rated him a bit more better than Out. I do think they need an edge rusher. So I've got them down going for Dallas Turner, Alabama.
Okay.
But again, I'm not surprised something could happen here. I reckon someone's going to try and jump and get this pick. But
Johnny, you get Chicago.
I think Chicago would be best advised here by just picking on offense for as long as they possibly can, and just surround Caleb Williams with as much talent as they possibly can. I don't think their offensive line is. I'm not particularly enamored with it. So I would want. There's nobody on that offensive line that will stop me picking somebody. Fashanu, I do like. The only concern I have with him is his finishing, and I like my offensive linemen to just be absolute grubs and just people who want to maul somebody. And Talisi Fuanga, I have a bit of a sneaky offensive line man crush on, because that guy just loves hitting people. So I would select him here, because I think even if he doesn't translate to guard straight away, because the Bears tackles are not terrible, I would happily put him in at guard and watch him maul people.
Okay. And because of Luke's absence, you get the Jets as well. So move on to the Jets.
With the Jets, I think you could potentially look at. I would probably go Fashanu here, just because that line was so poor last year, and I think it'll get better with Rodgers because he deals a little quicker than Zach Wilson does, which is hard not to. But Fashanu would be. I think they'd sprint the card in if he's available at this point.
I think it's also important to point out that obviously they signed Tyron Smith in free agency, but he's 33 and has missed so many games through injury the last couple of years that they're going to need an insurance policy there. And I think Fashanu will end up playing day one, regardless of whether Tyron Smith's there.
And I think the worst case scenario for the Jets is to have another season where Rodgers gets hurt. That's just the absolute nightmare.
Protect him.
So you've got to protect him.
And plus, selfishly, as Patriots fans, we don't want them to have Brock Bowers and let them have their own Gronkowski-type player.
That was going to be my point. the fact I get this is a group draft, but the fact that Brock Bowers has not gone in the top 10 is criminal. He will get picked in the top, even if the Jets pick him at 10. If it takes till then, Brock Bowers is not dropping out of the top 10. I cannot see it. Even if Chicago pick him at 9 or the Jets pick him at 10, he's going that early. He's an absolute star, and he will go that early. But it is what it is. Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I will take the man that is built for the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings would ideally trade up to get him, but on our board, for some reason, they can stay where they are and still get him, which I can't see that happening. So again, I will take QB JJ McCarthy from Michigan, Carl's favourite QB to ever exist behind Tom Brady. I'm gonna get in trouble for that comment. Kieran, you get Denver.
Yeah, so I think they could go a couple of different directions here. I mean, I'm sure they've been tempted by Brock Bowers if he's still on the board at this point. They could also go corner to pair with Patrick Surtain, but as much as I don't necessarily like this pick, and I wouldn't take him this high if it was me, I think if you look at their quarterback situation, where they're at, with Jarrett Stidham, obviously formerly of this parish, they don't have a second-round pick, and they just simply cannot go into this season with having the uncertainty at QB. So I'm going to have them take Bo Nix from Oregon here.
Okay. DJ, you get the Raiders.
So I'm not sure where that, because seeing Brock Bowers there at number 9. I mean, sorry, he's ranked at number 9 player, but at 13, it's hard to pass by on Bowers. But I have them going. I've got them going for Penix. I think he's the better fit for the Vegas. It's if they want to reach down that early for him.
I think the interesting thing with Penix is I think Penix is a bit of a binary scenario where if you're happy with the injury stuff, I think he's going to go high. I think if a team looks at him and says, I'm okay, and I think we're discussing it in the chat in the week that the Patriots have not met with him. And I wonder if that's because doctors have looked at that and said, no, don't draft him. We're not comfortable with that. So I think he's either going to be quite high on people's boards, or I think he'll just be off people's boards because they're not willing to take him with the injury risk.
And he's an older prospect as well, isn't he? So you got the age, the injury history. I mean, just a quick question to you guys. I mean, there was a comp that came to my head when I watched Michael Penix, which was just basically left-handed Baker Mayfield. Now, I don't know where you guys are in terms of comp, but when I watched him, that's exactly what I saw.
Yeah, I think he's bigger and kind of thicker, maybe a bit more athletic. I just think he's perhaps been injured so much he doesn't want to run. That kind of worries me. But then he ran off like 4.46 or something at his pro day, which is insane for somebody with no knees. I think he's probably better than Baker. I like him. I really like him. That's what I said earlier with the Patriots pick. If we traded back to 11, I would have happily sat at 11 and picked him there. Because I just think he's got an absolute cannon. Like of all the people in the draft, maybe bar Joe Milton, he also makes it look the easiest. Like it's just a flick of the wrist and it fires. His outside sort of sideline throws are unbelievable to watch. So I would have been happy to have picked him up as a Patriot later on. So I think the Raiders have got a decent pick there.
How much do you think, Johnny, is that elevated by the surrounding talent? I mean, Mac Jones had that coming out of Alabama with the receivers he played with. But if you look at Odunze, McMillan and Polk, they're all going to get drafted before.
Absolutely, no doubt. Yeah, he had a great receiving core around him. I think it's just for me, I was, and not obviously being respectful and like a big head, I wasn't on the podcast then, but I was never a Mac Jones fan because I didn't like the way the ball came out of Mac Jones' hand, Alabama. Like every throw with Mac Jones looks like he's trying his hardest to throw this ball as far as he possibly can. Whereas, like I was saying about Penix, it looks like it's a flick of the wrist and this thing just flies on a frozen rope. So I think his quality of arm talent is another world. And I think, massively benefits from the system he was in last year and been the air raid system and having the talent around him that he did. The funny thing I think about Penix is I think Texas had a chance to win the college playoff semifinal. And I think if Texas punch that in and win the game, I think he's a top 10 pick, because he never has the national championship game where he doesn't play very well and then his stock falls. He went from being a top 10 pick to a second rounder after that game. So I think he actually would have benefited from losing the college playoff semi-final and just not playing in that game. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Raiders they picked tight end last year, didn't they? Is it Mayers?
Mayer, yeah, Michael Mayer,
yeah. Johnny,
I guess if they get this wrong with Michael Penix, then they'll just look at it as another poor Raiders draft first round selection, because they've got a really bad history of first round.
They love a reach. So. They love a reach.
Yeah, it is a very Raiders pick, definitely.
Yeah, I'll go Penix. Cool.
Johnny, you get the New Orleans Saints.
I am very tempted because it is a need to go Laiatu Latu, and I do like him. His PFF grading is stupidly good. He's like 90 plus pass rating for like 2 years in a row. Like the only people that have done that are like the Bosa brothers and stuff. But man, Brock Bowers is still sat there, isn't he? He's still sat there, and I don't think I could pass on somebody as talented as Brock Bowers at pick 14. If he's there at 14, I'm sprinting the card in. I'm sorry, Laiatu Latu. But yeah, Brock Bowers for me, please.
No worries. Right, I will take Luke's Indianapolis pick. I think one of their major needs on the defensive side of the ball is a corner. And for me, it's not Arnold who's rated at 12, but for me, it would be Mitchell who's rated at 16. He tested off the chart at the combine. He impressed everybody. His performances in the Senior Bowl got him rave reviews from both coaches. So, with all that said, I think he will be a highlight for everyone searching for that side of the ball. So for Indianapolis, I will pick Quinion Mitchell, and I will take the Seattle Seahawks pick as well. And for me, that would be Troy Fontano. His reach is bigger than Joe Alt's. His arms are longer than Joe Alt's. He is rusty in that he needs to be a bit more consistent, but ultimately, I think up there in Washington State, I think that he can really find a career. So for me, Seattle need to improve their tackles and improve their offensive line. So for me, they go for Fontano.
I think as well they're in desperate need of kind of interior. Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. They're in desperate need of interior offensive line, and I think he's a perfect guard. Yeah,
I think he's probably one of those that could play both. If you needed him to play tackle, he can play tackle. If you need him to play guard, he can play guard. It might be a game-to-game basis based on what you actually need your tackle to do, based on what you need your guard to do. So, you probably see him playing both roles, I would think, at some point during the season.
I've seen Seattle. If this player was to go there, I have a funny, sneaky feeling they'll go for him, and that's Penix as well. To sit behind whoever their quarterback is now, I can't remember.
Geno Smith.
There you go.
Geno Smith, yeah. And
they signed...
Yeah, I was going to say they signed Sam Howell as well. You're not going to,
Well, yeah, true.
You're not picking Michael Penix to be your third choice QB in a first round draft. Not a chance. They, one of those third round QBs maybe, but no, I can't see them not in the first round. No. Kieran, you get Jacksonville.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go to the defensive side of the ball here. The Jags just need to keep loading up defensively, but I think offensively they're pretty set with with what they've got at the skill position, the line's all right. So yeah, just keep adding to the defense, and going to go best player available and go Terrion Arnold, corner from Alabama.
Okie doke. DJ, you get the Cincinnati Bengals.
So Bengals have lost quite a lot. So they're looking at trading Higgins. They've lost Boyd. You've got Brian Thomas Jr. there, which is, to me, if you have him and Chase on wide receiver core, that's a nasty wide receiver core there. But I still think they need to protect Burrows. I'm going to go with the offensive tackle from Alabama, Latham. JC Latham.
I'd have him in the Patriots in a heartbeat.
Latham.
Yeah, proper
Thomas.
Swing tackle, can play right, can play left.
Yeah.
You know,
solid.
You know, if the Patriots were trading down, you know, you've got all sorts of options. But if you're picking, if the Patriots trade down, one of those two picks for me would be Latham, big time. Whether I pick him at 23 if he's there, or whether I pick him higher, I don't. But I mean, I don't know. I can't see Brian Thomas Jr. getting past Cincinnati either, and Buffalo might yet trade up at some point. I think Buffalo might have to trade up to get him if they want Brian Thomas Jr. So we'll have to see. But you know, there's some big names available. But you know, JC Latham for me, I would have him at the Patriots, no problem. Proper dude.
Yeah, very versatile.
Johnny, you get the Rams.
I was going to pick him with my last pick with the New Orleans Saints, so I'll have Laiatu Latu, please. I did toy with going for Byron Murphy II to replace Aaron Donald, but I thought that's too much pressure to put on a poor young 21-year-old to pick him straight away. So I'm going to go for Laiatu Latu. I really rate him. I think he's really good. Again, someone medical. He was medically retired, I think, 2 years ago. But if you're comfortable with the medical stuff, with the neck injury, I think it was, I'd run the card up if he's still there at 19. Because
that really feels like a perfect Rams fit, doesn't it? You just look at the skill set and what they cover. Yeah. That is just fits like a glove.
Yeah, they're lacking edge defender as well, so he's a nice fit for them.
Kieran, take Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh, they love big guys. They love dogs in the trenches, and I can see a guy. I would be tempted by Jackson Powers Johnson here, actually from Oregon, but Amarius Mims is still on the board. They compare him with his former teammate Broderick Jones, bookend their tackle positions, regardless of who's playing at QB. So,
okay.
I was reading something the other day about was it Dan Moore, who's the left tackle last year at the Steelers, and his PFF like pass blocking grade against Myles Garrett was like a 3.5 or something. So I think that's a pretty good pick there to hope just give somebody else a shot at Myles Garrett for a season or two.
Right, I will take Miami. Now, it's quite interesting, this board, because I wouldn't expect Byron Murphy to be on the board, so I'm looking at him. I wouldn't expect Brian Thomas Jr. to be on the board. I'm looking at him. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. and Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Oh, that's maybe too much. Johnny Newton as well. He's... You know what? I can't pass up on Byron Murphy. I just think that's a almost perfect board and pick. I wouldn't expect him to be on there. Miami do have a need at defensive tackle, so that seems to be a fit. Jumping straight back to you, Kieran, with Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I don't think the Eagles need much offensively other than probably a slot receiver. They're not going to take one this high. They've got plenty of edge, plenty of interior defensive line. So I'm going to go on the back end, and I'd be tempted with Cooper DeJean, but I think they need speed on the back end. I think that's what they really lack. They got blazed on a few deep balls last year with some speedy receivers. So can I please have Nate Wiggins from Clemson? He ran a 4.37. They just need to get some speed on that back end, definitely.
Your wish. DJ, you get Minnesota's second pick.
So you picked JJ McCarthy, yeah? So I'm going to go defensive side here. And I think Johnny Newton's the best fit for this Minnesota D-line for Illinois. So I'll pick Johnny.
Okay. Johnny, you get the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?
I really
They're all in, apparently. They're all in. They're not showing they're all in, but they are all in, apparently.
What have they been for the last 5 years? I do like... I like the defensive tackles that were gone. I thought they were a nice fit. I think wide receiver is probably the direction they could go in. But I really like Jackson Powers-Johnson. That man is built like a square. He's just... I think he's going to be an absolute animal. And I think it's a reach for a center at this point. But they did it with Travis Frederick, and that was a position that was sorted for 10 years. And I think it's probably a sensible thing to do again. I don't think I would like to draft center this high personally, but I love Jackson Powers-Johnson, so I'll go for him, please.
I think he's the youngest player.
Obvious need there.
Yeah.
Did you not think he had a poor combine? His running he wasn't one of the fastest. He wasn't one of the fastest on the run for the offensive line. You know, his 3-point time wasn't spectacular, and I think a lot of draft boards had him in the first round, and now you read after the combine, a lot of them have got him right at the end of the first, top of the second. I think he has just dropped a little bit.
Yeah, I think positional value is an issue as well. That's like I said earlier, but I just think that he's a position of need with the Cowboys. I think he's one of the players, not to put too much hype on him too soon, but he's the kind of player you could see if he was a Hall of Famer at the end of his career. I'm not massively shocked by that. And I don't necessarily know if the combine really applies to a position less than center. Like I don't know if it really matters, to be honest. The guy's fighting in a phone booth most of his career. It's probably not going to matter, is it?
I think at this stage of the draft as well, I mean, like Nick said, you know, there are going to be some players here that have got grades towards the back end of the first round, top end of the second, and there are going to be players go within this range that are going to have second round grades, and teams are going to reach on some, and then they're going to be first round graded players that are going to slip into the second. So I think it's much of a likeness, and I agree, Johnny. I think there's a great need for a centre there with Tyler Biotish having gone, so I think that's a great pick.
Well, I actually wrote Jackson Powers-Johnson as somebody I wanted to draft for the Cowboys at the beginning when I was preparing for this, so I was quite happy he was still there. I also wrote wide receiver or corner, so I had Brian Thomas Jr. there, and I had Cooper DeJean, I also really like. So it was a tough pick between those three.
DJ, take Green Bay. I can't believe none of us have picked Brian Thomas yet. Jeez. Oh.
Yeah, I think there could be an option here where I think Buffalo are going to now start calling either Bucks or Green Bay to try and get a wide receiver. If Brian Thomas is still sitting there, I think this is a good opportunity for the Bills to try and
you have the Buffalo pick. Would you like to propose a trade as the man holding the Buffalo pick?
Yeah, do it.
I think you've got to get ahead of Arizona because I think even though they've drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., if you can come out the first round with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas Jr., that's a brilliant haul for them.
What is your proposal, DJ? So you trade in the 28th.
Yeah, 28th with their
for the 25th.
25.
And what are you offering as well? What are you willing to? What are you willing to give Green Bay?
So they've got a second round Minnesota there, haven't they? But isn't that the Diggs one that they've just given?
They've got 2 second rounders.
Yeah, so you'd have to
Green
give
Bay.
one of those second rounds.
Right. Okay. There you go. Right.
They take Brian here, Thomas.
Okie dokie. Okay. I've got Tampa Bay. I think I think I've on my draft somewhere, I'm pretty sure I've got Chop Robinson going to Tampa, but that's because I've got Verse already gone. So the fact that Verse hasn't gone says I have to pick this man. So there we go.
I do think there's a drop off after Latu, Verse, and Dallas Turner. So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I think the fact if he hadn't been there, I'd have still picked Chop as an edge because I think Tampa need that. But the fact that Verse is still there says I'm up in that. So, Kieran, you get Arizona.
Yeah, I think Arizona would be pretty happy to sit here at 27 and be able to get a potential future star of the back end this late on in the first round. So I'm going all in here. Cooper DeJean to Arizona.
I'm a big Cooper DeJean fan.
Mm.
The guy's a freak.
DJ, Green Bay, again.
I think they probably wanted this guy, but felt that they could probably drop. So that's why I did the trade. And I'm going for Kool-Aid McKinstry, or what his name is.
McKinstry.
Yeah. The cornerback from Alabama.
Johnny, you get the Lions.
Oh, now I think there's options here. I wanted to go corner, but you guys have kind of taken the 2 corners I really liked, which has happened. The second time it's happened to me tonight, where my picks that I've really circled have gone. I think their tackles are very good along the offensive line. I think Graham Barton is a very good interior offensive lineman that fills a nice hole for them. Tyler Guyton, it scares me a little bit because of his kind of lack of production, but lack of experience as well. But he is a bit of a freak. So I think I'd be willing to take a flyer on Tyler Guyton and just this late in the first round, take a flyer on a physical freak and see what happens.
Do they have someone retire as well, the Lions, on that O-line or not?
I know it's Jonah Jackson left in free agency.
Yeah.
They've signed Kevin Zeitler.
Yeah. I think Guyton could be somebody that starts in the interior and works their way out once Skipper retires. So.
Well, I'm going to change it up slightly. I'm going to pinch the Baltimore pick.
Okay.
And I'm going to take Mitchell. The fact that he's still there surprises me.
I sort of toyed with that at the Baltimore pick because that was originally when I was gonna select.
Yeah,
but I'm just very
changing it up
concerned that most of their offensive line is gone, and I don't know if they've backed themselves into a corner where they have to pick an offensive lineman with their first round pick because they just don't have anybody. But they also don't have any good receivers, so Adonai Mitchell is probably a good pick as well.
I was also kind of hoping he would fall to us in round 2, and I was also eyeing him with the Kansas City pick as well. But yeah, he's a talented player. But the Ravens do need a receiver. They need someone down the field other than Zay Flowers. So,
Kieran, I want you to take the San Francisco pick if you would.
Yeah, no problem at all. I think it's a difficult one for San Francisco, to be honest, because looking at what's left on the board, they're not going to take a receiver where they are. I'm not sure edge is a massive need for them. So I don't know whether I want to take Jordan Morgan or not, or whether Graham Barton might be the better serve player. So, do you know what? I'm going to go with the better player and go with Graham Barton from Duke, and just beef up that O-line.
I reckon they go Sweat here. If they still there.
I think their interior offensive line's not particularly strong. So I think someone like Graham Barton who can jump in at guard and straight away kind of pretty much add something, I think is a worthwhile pick. What's going on here then?
Patriots trade up.
Trading into the bottom of the first round, giving their second rounder to the Chiefs and also their third rounder next year. So quickly, you've got, I don't know, that's who's on the board. Based on who have we taken so far? We've taken May, haven't we? We're desperate for a wide receiver. For me, it would be Xavier Worthy. He'd be his speed coupled with Douglas and Bourne. Yeah, I would be taking Xavier Worthy.
For me, it would be between two names that are on the screen there. It would be between Kingsley Suamatea, the tackle prospect who is an athletic freak. He'll need some development, but he's young. And if I'm going receiver, for me, there's only one name on there, and that is Ladd McConkey, who I'm convinced is Cooper Cup 2.0.
Yeah, I've got him.
Yeah, my only concern with Ladd McConkey is whether, and not that Pop Douglas would stop me drafting Ladd McConkey, but I don't know if there's too much similarity between those two. I don't think McConkey's not an X receiver. I think he probably succeeds mostly in the slot. And I don't know if perhaps the one good receiver that we've got is already in that role, and whether it would be worth, because I like Xavier Worthy, but he scares me with his size. Him and Troy Franklin have me worried. Troy
Franklin just looks like Tyquan Thornton 2.0. So
that's exactly my thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've also got to consider here, as much as we want a receiver, the tackles massively drop off from this point on in the draft. You're looking at Suamatea, the Amagaji from Yale, and maybe Patrick Paul. After that, there is an enormous drop off to the later rounds. So his tackle, if it is that much of a concern, we're saying that getting a left tackle is a priority, then Suamatea may be here, but I think we could probably get him at 34 anyway, so I'm not sure I'd be trading up for him.
So should we have Suamatea then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had to reach for a wide receiver, I do like, and I'm saying it's a reach, we probably don't need to trade up for him, is Jalen Polk.
Jalen Polk, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if he was to fall to us in the second, I'd be tempted to get him.
Yeah, I think he'll probably go late. I would think he probably third round. We might have a chance at him.
Third, yeah. Depends what we do with that third. Because would you give up that third for Higgins?
Yes. For me, I would always give up a draft pick for a known quantity. I know T. Higgins can play in the NFL. I know he's a very good receiver. So yeah. If you want, because what am I getting with a third round pick really? A flyer. Probably. So the chance to kind of really take somebody. I know it was fun to kind of do at the end of the draft, but I don't think if that was the board, I would be trading up 2 picks.
No,
if I were the Patriots there. But
because we had 1 pick left, I thought, oh, go on, then we'll have some fun.
Yeah,
that's the draft results, guys. There you go. That's what you've drafted.
I reckon there'll be more trades.
I'm going to back away and say it's not what I would have done. It's nothing to do with me.
Wash your hands of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't have picked him. I'd have put him there, So there we go. So there we go. Right. We did say we were going to try and be on time. We've gone over. Never mind. Right. Okay. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Kieran and Johnny, it's great to have you on the team. And we'll have some fun.
Yeah, cheers. DJ, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. I really enjoyed that.
Cheers, Nick, for hosting.
No worries.
thanks, mate.
I assume Carl will be back in his hosting chair next week.
Probably.
I'll be around somewhere. So, yeah. So to everybody who's listening, wherever you get your podcast, give it a like, give it a rating. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Tell all your friends that we're amazing. Lie if you have to. And yeah, everyone have a great week. And speak on the other side. Cheers, guys.